Hi, everyone, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. We've got a good number of people on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And as others are joining, they can just start to listen as well. And this is being recorded, so people can also rewatch different segments if need be. My name is Stacey Cram. I'm the Policy Director at NAMATI, and I'm pleased to be facilitating today's webinar. This is the final in our March Sustainable Development Goal webinar series. So if you want to see webinar 1 or 2, you can look those up, and we'll be sharing those in the post-event communication. Today is Wednesday, March 22nd, and we have come together to discuss how we can leverage the Sustainable Development Goals to bring about policy changes which increase access to justice. We are going to discuss the new Transparency, Accountability and Participation Network Guide, Advocacy, Justice and the SDGs. And we'll also hear examples from countries where governments and civil society have already used the SDGs to push forward justice reform and to explore the challenges and solutions to national level implementation and advocacy. We're joined this morning by Jennifer Tsai from the American Bar Association, Christimos Konstantinos from Public Legal Education and Legal Aid Center Indonesia, and from John Romano from the Transparency, Accountability and Participation Network. My network team colleagues Tobias Eigen, Ashley Van Wees, and Maya Redding are also here and will field all of your questions, which you can type into the little box. So I'm just going to ask all of the presenters to turn on their webcams and say hi now so you know who you are speaking with.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, great. You all know who the faces behind the voices are, so we can turn those off now. I'd also like to recognize colleagues on the call from Open Society's Justice Initiative and the International Legal Foundation, who co-authored this guide along with ABE, Rowley and ourselves, and a number of members from the Global Legal Empowerment Network, as well as the TAP Network. So before we get too far into those proceedings, I just have some brief housekeeping for the webinar. Firstly, to take note that this event is being recorded, and we will share the full recording and highlights later on our website. I also want to make sure that everyone can hear well and that you're able to use our webinar system. You'll see on the right-hand panel that there's a box you can type questions into to communicate with us. And there's also a button for raising your hand to get our attention. So if you're having any problems, just put your hand up and one of my colleagues will be able to help you. I'd also like to introduce everyone to the Global Legal Empowerment Network, who are co-hosting this with the TAP Network. Our network is a growing community of more than 1,000 organizations and 3,500 individuals from around the world who are working to advance justice, be it in land rights, citizenship rights, the right to health, education, judicial reform, or any other sector where injustice persists. Our members include human rights activists and grassroots organizers, advocates and educators, lawyers and community paralegals, researchers, policymakers, and public service. So the whole spectrum of justice sector reformers. Through this network, practitioners from all regions and all disciplines are able to come together to collaborate and learn from each other, both online and through in-person events. And we also share ideas, challenges, best practices, and resources. So how we do this is the main way is through an online discussion platform, which you can access from your laptop, tablet, or smartphone. Here we discuss problems and share ideas, solutions, and opportunities. And we also learn from each other through webinars like this one and through face-to-face learning exchanges, We have a leadership course every year, and then there's other regional and national events which we share on our network. Additionally, we have an online library which today has more than 1,000 free resources, including the guide that we're going to discuss today, and many other materials such as monitoring and evaluation tools, case management forums, research, and much more. And last but not least, and probably of most interest to people on this webinar today, is advocacy. So we work together to campaign on issues that affect us globally, nationally, and regionally, such as our campaign that helps to ensure the Sustainable Development Goals actually reference access to justice and have a specific goal on it. So you can join this network by clicking the link on your screen. It's free and open to all and just requires a quick sign up on the website and you're in. And we're going to be in touch after the event with all of the links and an invitation to join. I'd also encourage everyone else to check out all the other organizations who are on this call, and we'll be sharing details about each organization and how you can get involved with them as well. And now I am pleased to introduce Jennifer Tsai from ABA Rowley. She's going to be followed by Christmo from Public Legal Education and Legal Aid Centre, and then John from the Transparency, Accountability and Participation, or TAP network. Each presenter is going to speak, and if you have specific questions for those panelists, just type them into the question box and put their name before your question, and we can direct it specifically to them, or we'll also take general questions. We're going to allow for all presentations to happen first, and then we will open up the floor for Q&A. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jennifer now.
Hi, thanks, Stacey. It's a pleasure to be here today. For those of you who aren't familiar with my organization, the ABA Rule of Law Initiative, we are an international rule of law organization that's been around for more than 25 years and worked in more than 100 countries on access to justice, human rights, and rule of law reform. You can find out more about us at abarol.org. Today, I wanted to focus my remarks on a new publication, Advocacy, Justice, and the SDGs, which was developed to fill a need identified by access to justice reformers who have been working for years and years to promote access to justice at the national level, but lack the political and financial support to scale up their work. We kept hearing this and decided to develop this publication at a time when world leaders have recognized the critical role of access to justice in achieving sustainable development. And we hope that it will help users to leverage the SDGs to push for increased justice support and financing from governments. Next slide, please. This toolkit was a multidisciplinary effort among members of the TAP network, ABA Rowley Namati, Open Society Foundations, and the International Legal Foundation. It was a truly collaborative effort bringing together expertise from different perspectives in access to justice, legal aid, and legal empowerment. Throughout 2016, we produced a first draft. And then in September 2016, we held a consultation with civil society on the toolkit to solicit feedback and then further refine the toolkit based on that feedback. And in November 2016, in partnership with the governments of Argentina, Indonesia, and South Africa, we had an official launch for the guide in Argentina, and we can say that it was well received. Before we move on, I wanted to do a quick poll. I've never done this before, and I'm told that it's fairly easy, but if you could all answer yes or no to the following question. I'm a member of civil society, an activist, or a policy practitioner working to promote access to justice and legal empowerment at the national level. And we'll give you a few minutes to answer that question. So sort of 73% of you said that yes, you are sort of a member of one of those groups working at the national level. So that's you're at the right place this morning. If you answered yes, then this toolkit may be useful to you. If you answered no, then it still may be useful to you, depending on sort of how related your work is to legal empowerment and access to justice. What's in it? Everything you need to know to enable the creation of a national justice plan, a step-by-step process from broadening your understanding of the SDGs and how they can help your advocacy to how you can hold your government accountable to the justice commitments it has made. Next slide, please. The toolkit is divided into 5 sections. The first section gives a brief history of the SDGs. I'll use the remainder of my time to go through sections 2 through 5. The second section is called The Opportunity, a National Plan for Justice, using the SDGs to increase access to justice. As I mentioned, while many of you have been working on access to justice and legal empowerment issues for a long time, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to use the SDGs to push for a new national justice plan. And while we encourage you to aim high, this toolkit is also useful to push 1 or 2 specific justice reforms. What is a national justice plan? It's a useful tool that maps out the steps in a targeted and detailed way, steps that must be taken to adequately address a country's justice challenges. You can think of it as a coordinated plan of action which looks at all areas of justice, including civil and criminal issues. For the SDGs, countries have committed to creating national plans and policies to implement them. As governments begin to do this, you can advocate for a national justice plan to be developed as part of that process. And we'll hear later how Indonesian civil society was able to capitalize on this opportunity. We recognize that this is not the only way to push for reforms, or in some situations may not even be practical to push for a national justice plan. So the toolkit addresses this and gives examples of other sector-specific approaches. Next slide. The third section is called The Action, Advocating for a National Justice Plan. What policy reform should you be advocating for? This toolkit provides 4 tools to help you get clear about this. To begin, you can do a baseline assessment of the status of access to justice in your country. The toolkit provides a methodology that was derived from ABA Rowley's Access to Justice Assessment Tool. And this tool breaks down access to justice into 6 elements, which you can see here on this slide. Doing a baseline will help you assess whether your government's current justice efforts satisfy the justice commitments in the SDGs. Over the years, I've had a lot of inquiries about how you can conduct a baseline access to justice assessment using surveys, and I'm excited to report that this toolkit contains a questionnaire developed by the World Justice Project that you can use in your access to justice assessments, and that's found in one of the appendices in the back of the toolkit. The second tool that the toolkit describes is a gap analysis that allows you to dive deeper into how your country's legal system or policy framework currently functions compared to how it should function. These are the gaps, and you can use any gaps to identify strategic entry points for your advocacy. Next slide. This slide shows another tool, the third tool, a solutions tree that will help you to determine solutions to the issues that you identify by looking at root causes of the issues, the barriers to solving the issue, as well as solutions to resolve the issue, including how you can use the SDGs and Goal 16 to help. Next slide. The fourth tool is TAP Network's Stakeholder Analysis Tool. Advocating for a national justice plan is a huge undertaking, as many of you may know, and it's important to enlist the help of other like-minded reformers. The TAP Network Stakeholder Mapping Tool can help you identify and plan strategies for dealing with your allies as well as your opponents and targets. Next slide. So once you've gone through all these tools and established partnerships with relevant stakeholders, I should note that these tools are meant to be complementary to each other, and you wouldn't need to do them in any particular order or all of them, but whichever are relevant and useful to your work. Once you have established partnerships with relevant stakeholders, you can begin to develop a collective advocacy strategy that uses the SDGs to call for a national justice plan. The strategy will build upon all of the information you have gathered through the Access to Justice assessment, gap analysis, solutions tree, and stakeholder analysis. You should consider the stages a national justice plan goes through as it is being developed for national implementation. These stages are listed here. I'll run through them quickly. Consultations and mapping, planning for delivery, drafting your national justice plan, adopting your national justice plan, and tracking progress. The toolkit provides practical guidance, examples, and ideas for approaching each of these stages. Next slide. For example, for the first stage, consultations and mapping, if you've already gone through the tools in this toolkit, then you will have already carried out the mapping exercises. But at this point, you should encourage your government to start a process of extensive stakeholder consultation. This slide is actually for the next stage, planning for delivery, which involves defining priorities, roles, and responsibilities. And this slide shows OSF's Justice Sector Resource Mapping tool. Resource mapping will help you assess the required and available resources for developing your national justice plan. This is an example of how you can use the tool to assess national or local government agencies, such as your country's Ministry of Justice, Judiciary, or Office of the Attorney General. Next slide. Drafting your national justice plan. This slide shows a goals worksheet, which will help you develop your plan. You will need, in getting your national justice plan adopted, you'll need to go through all of the necessary political deliberations and redrafts as required by the government before it's officially adopted. At this point, you'll want to work hard to sustain pressure on your government to adopt your plan, and to keep up the momentum, you can consider using outside global processes, which we cover in section 5 of the toolkit. Next slide. And finally, tracking progress to ensure better accountability for justice. This toolkit does a great job, in my opinion, about how to develop effective and efficient indicators, walking you through the 6 steps pictured here. You can use these same indicators to monitor the effectiveness and efficiency of your own work. Christamo, the next speaker, will talk more about how national indicators were developed in Indonesia. Next slide. The 4th section is entitled Overcoming Challenges, Troubleshooting Blockers to Justice. As you probably have already experienced, some of you, you'll face a number of risks and challenges when you begin advocating for your national justice plan. For example, if you run into low levels of political will, your government officials telling you the SDGs are not important, if the process is not transparent and participatory. And the toolkit gives some examples of how you can troubleshoot to overcome these challenges. Next slide. The 5th chapter is called International Review. Even if your work is national in focus, it will be useful to remain aware of major developments at the international level so that you can identify opportunities to leverage support for your own efforts through international fora and processes as appropriate. The toolkit describes the global indicators on access to justice and legal empowerment, global review processes, and using these processes to support your national justice reforms. That is all I have. We consider this toolkit to be a living document, and we'll continue to revise it. As always, we welcome any feedback and suggestions from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was great. And we're now going to hand over to Cristimo, who, as we have spoken about, is going to talk about how they've been implementing the SDGs in Indonesia. So, Cristimo, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Okay, I'm Cristimo from Indonesia, and I will share how in Indonesia we implement the SDGs 16.3 with strong collaboration with GSOs. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I think the slides have changed. It might just be a quite delay. So, Ashley, could you just go back one to Cristimo's first slide, please?
Yeah. Okay. In Indonesia, we implement the SDGs 16.3 in legal aid by establishing a strong engagement between government and GSOs. For example, I am from the government, and we practice the open government policy here. Even in creating or in establishing regulation in implementing regulation of legal aid law in Indonesia, we invited the GSOs to discuss the implementation regulation, for example, government regulations, ministerial decrees, etc. And even I will show you later that in the implementation of legal aid, we also collaborate with GSO. And by implementing this program, we try to integrate the indicators with our national medium-term development plan that we add two national indicators to the two global indicators. So we add the number of poor people who get legal aid, the litigation and litigations is our national target, and also the justice sector services for poor people through mobile court, rodeo, or allowance for litigating civil cases without cost is also our national target. And this target is written in our national mid-term development plan until 2019. Next slide, please. Hello, next slide, please. Yeah, and this is how we measure access justice in Indonesia. That we ask the metadata from the stakeholders database. So this is the two UN indicators. That's the proportion of victims of violence in previous 12 months. We ask the stakeholders here to report to from the database of on the victim of violence in previous 12 months, and the number of crime victims. We get the data from the national police. And then the second, the unsentence detainees as proportion of overall prison population. We get the data from the correction departments. So this is how we try to measure the implementing of access justice in Indonesia. Next slide, please. And in the next slide, we measure the third indicators, which is the number of poor people who get the legal aid in the litigations. It is also our national target. We just count the how many poor people who get legal aid, and the fourth measurement is for the indicators is justice sectors or judicial service for poor people through mobile court, audio, and legal service also. We just try to get the numbers of judicial service for these poor people through those three services in legal service post. Next slide, please. So this is how we develop the strong cooperation with GSOs in implementing SDGs on legal aid. So we are from the Ministry of Law and Human Rights, Ministry of Justice. We create the budget and regulations, also with uh, the discussion with the GSOs, and we implement the legal aid by 405 legal aid providers, which is all of them has to pass the verification and accreditation process, and all of them are GSOs also. And the third stakeholder is the poor people, marginalized and vulnerable people. And in Indonesia, since the database of the poor people is not so valid, so we use the formal approach, which is as long as they can show us the poverty proof letter, so they can access the legal aid. Next slide, please. And this is the type of legal aid services. We have litigations. In all cases and non-litigations, we have 9 activities from consultation, mediation until people legal empowerment, and all of them done by 405 GSOs or legal aid providers in to serve the poor people. And uh, in some cases in litigations, the most cases are handled is in drugs cases, and in private cases, divorce cases, and there's also some administration cases that we also provide the legal aid services. So we provide the services for those uh, who has problem with the government also. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And this is the justice program here that we try to create, that we, since the problem in Indonesia is that we have a lot of lot of islands, and there is it's so large country, and the disbursement of the lawyers is not in all regencies. So they are all of the most of the lawyers are only in the big cities. So we in starting last year, uh, we we try to empower the role of the paralegals in the community, in the village, and also in the legal aid providers. We have develop cooperation with another ministry, it's Ministry of Village Development and Disadvantaged Regions and Transmigration. We create the program One Village, One Paralegals, One Village, One Paralegals, and hopefully it can be done in 2 or 3 years in the future. And paralegal here in Indonesia has strong significant role as the access to justice for especially for villagers, which is who live far away from cities and far away from lawyers. And but paralegal here should join the legal aid providers to have the supervision on the quality and to have the monitoring. And also we establish also public legal educator. These are public civil servants who has the main job in as a public legal educator, and all of them we want to make public legal awareness as one of the midterm of national development in Indonesia. Next slide. Next slide, please. Hello, next slide, please.
Again,
Okay,
sorry,
for the next slide.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it this one?
Yeah. So in ensuring the quality of legal aid, we use IT, an application, web-based applications of we call it information and database of legal aid system, and we also create the key performance index of legal aid providers, which based on 4 dimensions. First, the client satisfactions. It's kind of uh, we make this index based on this client satisfaction. So we interview the client. We ask them about the perception of the services. Is the client satisfied with the services or not? And we also ask about the integrity of the legal aid providers. We also ask about the knowledge of legal process. Do the lawyers tell the beneficiaries the procedures that this beneficiary will go through, and what kind of process uh, the time they need, etc. And also we ask the beneficiaries about how do they get the information about legal aid, and also we put it all of the data here in the dashboard of our website, and then this website also web-based application also used for the online reimbursement. This is to make sure the transparency of uh, the reimbursement system, and the accountability also. And this we created as simple as that can be ordered by the smartphone. So legal aid providers can use it, can use their smartphone to make the online reimbursement system, and also people in Indonesia can also monitor the implementation of legal aid through the dashboard of our website. Next slide, please. So in this next slide, we we also make the monitoring tools. The objective is to maintain the quality as stated in legal aid service standard. And the method is that we interview all of the beneficiaries. So we go to the prison, for example, we go to the beneficiaries in the database, and we ask them these questions. And also in the next slide, uh, all of them well, we make it in online monitoring system. This is that next slide, please. This is how the application to make sure that all of the process in litigation or non-litigation is in line with the standard of quality as stated in our government regulations. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And this is the scoring index. We make it transparent. Next slide. Next slide. This index scoring, we make it transparent. I mean that we put it in the website, and the legal aid providers knows how what aspect they are they are uh, they are monitored, and then they know also the mechanism of the monitoring. And also we use the technology smartphone to socialize or to inform the program of the legal aid. Of course, it is not directly to the poor people, but we try to ask the people who use gadget to tell those poor people when they get a trouble, they can get the legal aid free for them. Okay, thank you very much of your of the time, and back to the organizer.
Thank you so much, Christino. And I mean, it really is remarkable, all the work that Indonesia has been doing. I would really encourage people who are interested to find out more to kind of ask questions here today, but also continue asking questions. And there's a lot of really useful resources and learnings and how they've been able to really use the SDGs to drill forward on national indicators. And this is some of the most advanced kind of justice indicators and that we're seeing around the world. So thank you so much for sharing. I'm just now going to hand over to John Romano from the TAP network, who is going to give us a quick run through of the other resources and what else TAP has planned for this year. So John, I'll hand over to you.
Great. Yeah, thanks very much, Stacey. And thanks again to everyone for joining, and of course to our partners, who put together this really great tool of the advocacy, justice, and the SDGs toolkit. I think it's something that we've been looking to build upon as a network. I'll go into just a very brief discussion about some of the other resources that we have in addition to this toolkit. One of them is, you can see our Goal 16 Advocacy Toolkit. We've gotten this translated now. It's available in 7 different languages. And what we envision for this toolkit, I mean, this is kind of a first step for us. We released this last year. The objective for us was to help organizations, civil society organizations at the national level, help them understand what was Goal 16, what are the SDGs, where are the entry points, how can they engage with your national government, how can you go about putting together an advocacy plan, undertaking a gap analysis, as you heard from Jennifer from the Justice Toolkit. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach this work at the national level, and so we provide some kind of top-level guidance on what are some of the basic entry points that you can expect at the national level when you encounter or when you look to do advocacy towards your national government. Next slide, please. And so just a few things that we have, going on. We're on the back end of the release of this toolkit. We've hosted several workshops in different countries at the national level with some of our partners that are some of our experts on these issues. And so we're working with some of these partners to help us put together help national level organizations work around SDG 16, help them plan their advocacy, and then help them follow up with their government, whether it's on justice or whether it's on access to information or fundamental freedoms. There's a lot of work that we'll be doing. In addition to that, we'll look to put together additional resources as well. So it'd be great to hear from all of you what resources might be most helpful for all of you going forward, and we'll follow up. after this webinar. And so we have a very quick poll that we'll take. The question is, do you feel that this toolkit would be helpful in your own work? You know, we saw earlier an indication of how many of you worked at the national level, which is what both of these toolkits are really aimed towards. So in the first instance, it'd be great to get your views on how helpful you think it might be for your own work. And obviously we'll follow up on the back end of this, but we'll just give you a quick moment to fill out this poll. Okay, great. So I'm very, very glad to hear that most of you agree that this would be a useful tool. I think for those of you that haven't had a chance to go through it in depth, I would really encourage you to do so. Like I said, on the back end of all of this work, not just with the Goal 16 toolkit, but also with the Justice toolkit as well, we'll be looking to host workshops at the national level with some of the experts that you might have that you work with on justice issues in your country. So on the back end of this webinar, it'd be great, especially for those of you that indicated that you work at the national level, and obviously those of you that agree that this would be a helpful tool or tools. We'll follow up, and hopefully we can you know, help get some of that national level work started or going in your countries. So thanks again for joining and for the time.
Great, thank you, John. And there's already what we've been able to outline in the guide, but not really drill into for time on this call, is there's been some great support in specific countries, examples from Kenya and the Philippines and Indonesia and Argentina, and other countries. I'm not listing them all here in the guide, really looking at the practical steps that they took and what those outcomes were. So giving you really a flavor of different ideas of how to use the SDGs and what kinds of things they've been able to accomplish so far, so that as you start to kind of plan and dig deeper, how to do that. So thank you again to all of the presenters and for everyone for staying on the line. We're now opening up to questions from the audience. We already have some lined up, but please do continue to type in now if you have more questions. The first question is actually to Cristimo. A few kind of linked questions. People have asked around what is in the content of the poverty proof letter that you outlined, and who issued this letter, and how long does it take to get?
I will directly answer it. That the poverty proof letters. First of all, it is we wanted the institution to will issue this the local government in the village or at the police station and also at the prosecution. But since we implement the legal aid law since 2013, and it was very hard for the poor people to get such poverty proof letters, due to some circumstances. Perhaps this is the very new law, and it is the very new system that require a poverty proof letter as for the legal aid. And in 2014, starting 2014-15, we gave the authority to the head of detention house to also to issue the poverty proof letters. It is just a letter that explain the letter holder is poor. That's all. And now, since 2016, we give also the the authority for the regulated providers to issue this cooperative letters. Actually, it is just to make sure that the legal aid, the access to justice is not what is not being difficult by administration things. So since 2016, we open for the legal providers to issue also the cooperative letters, but uh, it should be noticed by, for example, the head of the village or the detention house or the police. So that's and
Christopher, can I, sorry,
many,
can I ask, that they've had a quick follow-up on this, is what are the criteria that you are looking at to decide on the poverty levels? It's Kunan who's saying they're having a problem right now with identifying the poor. Is it just an income means assessment that you do, or are there other criteria for being able to get one of these letters?
So it's basically in economic perspective that this institution, some of these institutions issues this letter based on the income and also based on the condition of the the holder, meaning that actually this is our difficulties, that we have no strong database of the poor people. So we use the formalistic approach, the formal approach, that as long as you show us the poverty proof letter, then you can access the legal aid. Yeah, that's all
That's
that
great.
I can explain.
Yeah, no, perfect. We've got a question from Fatima in Nigeria. Jen, I might direct this to you. But she was just saying she would love to have heard more on the monitoring resources, on the monitoring side of the toolkit. So I wonder if maybe you could speak a little bit more to the content there. I know Kristen was spoken to the national example, but if there's anything you can add.
Yeah, sure. And we devote a whole section to this. But in terms of developing indicators so that you can conduct that monitoring and tracking progress, not only your own progress in your programs, but also national level progress towards sort of realizing goal 16.3. We sort of provide 6 steps where you know, which you can follow, and this is sort of based on sound science, sort of that we came across in our research. So the aim is to develop national level indicators that are relevant to your work, even where so the global indicators on goal 16 are not relevant or are insufficient. So you would identify sources of data for each indicator and adopt a comprehensive data gathering plan. This would help you establish a baseline data for each indicator. You would do the data gathering, and then you would use that data, and in a lot of cases, you know, sort of there's a global push to recognize citizen-generated data or non-official data, and certainly TAT Network has done a lot of work on this. So you would report sort of the data that you were able to generate to the monitoring and evaluation authority in your country, and then sort of you would use that reported data, compare that against sort of the administrative data collected by your government to see whether they were aligned. I know certainly that sort of Stacy and John might have some thoughts on this, as well as some of our colleagues from ILF if they're on the call.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really interesting conversation to kind of take on offline as well, because there's just so much to go into it. But it's something that's been grappled with kind of at all levels. You know, I think we can all recognize that there hasn't been huge amounts of history in measuring quality of access to justice. So there's a lot of new things that are being tested right now. This is kind of the guide gives a lot of parameters, but as Jennifer said, it is a living document, and we're seeing already, since this has been published, some really great work coming from a number of different countries. The Open Societies Justice Initiative is helping, I think it's 8 specific countries, to look at legal needs surveys and how these can be used and what kinds of indicators can go in there. And then the World Justice Project, we've put their survey into the guide, but they have also just carried out a survey in 80 countries around the world to look at how people are accessing justice and how effectively they are being supported when they're able to enter into that process. And that's going to be published in the coming months. So we'll make sure to kind of put this discussion online and kind of get some of the feedback from that data, how that data can be used, all of that kind of thing. So it's certainly a tricky and evolving question. I'm now going to ask another question, which has come from Martina in Sierra Leone, and it's back to Christamo. They're wondering, how do you maintain the online monitoring resource? And how effective do you think it has been in helping access to justice in Indonesia? I know certainly there's a lot of interest in tech solutions, but sometimes a lot of problems when we start rolling those out as well.
Okay, certainly the online monitoring system here is that just to make sure that the legal aid program is in line with the standard of the quality which is written in our government regulation. Why we use the online monitoring report? Because it is to overcome the problem of the geographical problem that is Indonesia is so large countries, and we only have 405 legal aid providers, and we only have 33 provinces offices, and then that's why we use this online monitoring report. And so far, this online monitoring report give us the feedback of for example, of some maladministrations done by the legal providers. It's just few of them still ask money from the beneficiaries for and another violence in other violations against our standard. Yes, we use this monitoring online report since last year, and then we continue this year, and then we try to develop give some development in our web-based online system monitoring. So that's just how to ensure that the legal aid beneficiaries, also the poor people, poor people, and that the legal program just as in line as standard of quality of our program.
Great. Sorry, everyone. I got stuck on mute there. There is a question. Sorry, there's a couple of questions that just came in at the same time. One is around asking how the 2030 agenda and the SDGs is complementary to other global platforms such as the Open Government Partnership. So I might direct that at John or Jennifer, but also I'm just going to make a plug. Last week in the second webinar of this series, we had a whole webinar on OGP and the SDGs. So I would direct people to watch that, because you'll learn how you can bring together these two processes. And actually Indonesia is another great example where they were able to use some of the mechanisms such as the consultations between government and civil society that had been developed through OGP to move forward the national justice work linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. But I will ask the question, put that to you, either John or Jennifer, if you want to come in.
Yeah, maybe I'll just say a few words on that. I think that's a really important question to ask, and really something that we all need to wrestle with when it comes to our own advocacy. I mean, I think the main thing to say about that is that, yeah, I mean, they are complementary. I think the way that we've always viewed it is that these are just additional commitments that governments are making to advance these issues like justice and strong institutions and open governance. And I think something that the toolkits, both of the toolkits actually cover is an issue of, you know, what happens if your government doesn't necessarily prioritize SDG 16 or the access to justice targets, or what if they're not a member of the Open Government Partnership? You know, I think that's really important to think about ways that you can still try and convince your government to prioritize justice reforms at the national level or even at the local level, even in the absence of their commitment to the SDGs or the Open Government Partnership or any other of these international commitments. And so I think the toolkit goes into a little bit of depth about how you use the SDGs kind of as a guiding, almost as a, you can say, the North Star, guiding, you know, where you want to be in terms of your ultimate ambition. But in terms of the actual practical steps to get there, there are many, many ways to approach it. And I think in some ways, maybe using the SDGs as kind of an advocacy tool is just an entry point, and then there are other specific ways that you can go about getting your government to commit to instigating justice reforms, for example. So again, we can talk much more in depth about this, but that's just kind of my overall thoughts.
That's great. And I'm conscious of time. We have two final questions, so maybe Jennifer, I'll not let you come in there. The first question again is around, back to Christamo, around how the program in Indonesia is funded. It's in your development plan. So does the funding come for the legal aid providers and for the surveys? Does that come out of the justice budget, or does that come from multiple agencies? How is the government funding this program?
All right. So the funding for this program comes from our national budget. So it is the ministerial budget, and of course it can it's just not, it cannot cover all of the cases in Indonesia. In fact, since the first year is 2013 implemented, then until now, it is only around 50 billion rupees. It's only cover around 7,000 of cases. But we want to we make kind of advocacy to for the Ministry of Finance and also the House of Representatives to increase the budget. And second, we also make advocacy of for local government to also to allocate the local budget for legal aid also. So some of the local governments, we have at least now 30 local governments in the provincial level and also in the regency levels, that also municipal level also, that has already allocate the budget for legal aid also. So the funding comes from the first national budget and second the local budget. Thank you.
That's great. And again, in the guide, there is more resources around how you can do an audit of your government, what their, there's different lines in like ministries of health or in local government. How can you find those pots of money? How can you help coordinate how that money is being spent? Examples from Indonesia, but also other countries where we've seen those kind of government funding being directed, and also some of the concerns I know that exist around government funding going into legal aid work. How do you ensure transparency, accountability, and keeping corruption out of the justice system, which is a problem in some places. I'm very conscious of time, and we had a comment from Samuel in Liberia, who I'm not just asking about advocating for the rights of people on land rights issues and other legal issues relating to abuse of the government and the police. I don't think we're going to have time to ask the question, but I would point you in the direction, and I can follow up with you offline as well. We have a great tool around land rights and how you can start to work on that issue from the MATI, so I'm happy to send you that. Again, he's asking about bribery in the justice system and police corruption, which are huge issues. The TAP network has a lot of good resources on how to improve or reduce, corruption in government. So I would have a look at the guide that John talked about and maybe follow up offline on 2 of those questions. And again, sorry, I'm just going to try and sweep up all of the questions and give people a little, but Margarita's asked, is the guide covering legal and judicial actions needed in order to reinforce private sector accountability? There is a little on private sector accountability, and what's interesting about the 2030 agenda is really the role of the private sector in ensuring the effective delivery and in reporting themselves on what they're doing to implement the SDGs. So there's a strong focus on the private sector. That's not to say everyone's playing ball, but it's covered in there. And again, this could be a discussion, and we could add this question to the kind of offline discussions that we'll take forward. And I'm sorry that we've run out of time, but I am going to use my prerogative as chair to close the Q&A section and to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you to all of the excellent questions that we've had from everyone. I'm sorry that we've not got more time. I could talk about this all week, let alone all day. And thank you to my colleagues to fielding the questions. And of course, last but not least, to our presenters, to Jennifer and John and Christamo. It's been super informative. I think there's a lot of discussions still to have, and I really encourage us all to move these conversations onto our online discussion platform so that we can learn from each other's experiences. And we do really want to keep this as a living document. So again, to update and to know what's going to be useful to better support you in your work. If you did enjoy this webinar, we highly recommend that you go back and watch the other webinars that we've done in this series, one which looks at open government, another at gender and justice issues. It should hopefully give you some more inspiration for this work. And download our toolkit. Make a plug for that. We'll be sending out the link one more time. And as I said, we are the Global Legal Empowerment Network. Please do join, look at joining the TAP network as well. We'll send information on all of our organizations, but let's start working together on this. It's a big agenda, and we all need to be pushing for the same objectives. Excuse me. So we'll be in touch with email with a reminder for everybody. We'll also be sharing the full recording. Please do share it with your colleagues if they weren't able to join today, and do let's keep the conversation going. So thank you again, everyone. I might ask the presenters to quickly say bye, turn on their videos and say bye. It's been wonderful having you all, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. It's been very interesting.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.